The Bucks lost the front end of a back-to-back against the Washington Wizards, but they'll be back at it tomorrow. So we'll talk about what players we think are actually going to be available in this game. And we've got the old favorite triple threat back with us with Camille and Justin. So we're going to talk about this season overall and where the panic meter is for this Bucks team that have now lost 4 and 5. They're slipping in the standings. And overall, I think you could say they've had a little bit of a scratchy regular season.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. My name's Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday and also find my work over at ESPN. And as I mentioned, we've got the triple threat here. First time we've done this in a little while from the Tech Foul podcast. Camille Davis also with me weekly on this show. And from the Bucks Radio Network, we've got Justin Garcia for today's episode. It's brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's at prizepicks.com with the promo code Locked On. Thank you for making Locked On Bucks first watch or first listen of every single day, especially after, let's just say, not the most exciting games of all time, as last night was not against the Washington Wizards to start 2023. But the Bucks will play Washington again tomorrow. We'll have a post-game pod, as we do every Monday to Friday, occasionally on the weekend. So we appreciate you all listening to the show. Subscribe if you haven't already, particularly on YouTube, where let's just say the most vibrant conversation happens in the YouTube comments, and we absolutely love that. Justin, I haven't podcasted with you for a little bit, so I'm going to go to you first. You were there last night for this game.
The whole thing.
I mentioned, you didn't leave early. That's impressive. I've been there, and I mentioned this yesterday. I've been to a few New Year's Day games, and it's always a great atmosphere, I think, because there's some people in town perhaps that get the chance to see the Bucks that aren't always going to be around. What was it like in the building, either pre-game or throughout this one? Because this was a pretty flat affair, I would say, for the home team.
So there's a couple of things. One, I was pleasantly surprised that it didn't really empty out until 4 minutes left in the game. That
was it half-price beers or something? What was going on?
Well, we knew, if we're being kind here, going into the fourth quarter, it was over. So I was surprised Bucks fans didn't just leave in droves at the end of the third and try to beat the New Year's Day traffic. But it was a pretty good atmosphere, all things considered.
Hold on a second. We've done triple threats before, but we've never done a fatal four-way on Locked On Bucks. And Frank Madden is with us. He was so disgusted by this game yesterday. He said, I am not talking about this Milwaukee Bucks team. No, that's a lie. I think he had some other stuff going on, but he looks like he's ready to go. Frank Madden, the founder of BrewHoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast. Welcome to the fatal four-way.
It's a pleasure, guys. I have no idea what you guys have been talking about because literally we just got back from our trip to Wisconsin, and I was in a hotel room with a sick 4-year-old last night, as Kane was alluding to. So, which was probably for the best, because let's be honest, who wanted to talk about that game yesterday anyway?
And let's be honest, Frank. Let's be honest. Tilly went to a game on the weekend. Your daughter, her first ever game, saw Giannis, and she watched the first half of this Bucks Wizard, and it made her feel physically ill. And none of us can blame her for that.
I mean, I was really hoping for a 50-piece on Friday, because then I could claim you called it out on the podcast that I wasn't able to join. But it would have been pretty awesome if the last game that I saw was seeing Giannis score 50. I went with my dad. They won an NBA championship. It felt like the closing of sort of one chapter of my fandom. And then I literally don't go to another game for whatever it is, a year and a half. And then it's the next game I go to is the first game I ever go to with my daughter. Alas, Giannis can only manage 43 or whatever he had and 20 rebounds. So, Giannis is kind of slacking a little bit, but at least they won. And of course, Kane, the most important thing is that she saw Joe Ingles' historic first double-double in Milwaukee, which, she will be telling tales of the first game she went to, seeing Joe Ingles put up 14 points and 10 assists, when she's in her 50s and 60s. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Not so much the first half, but it was funny because, Justin, Camille, and we met up earlier in the week. I slandered you in that tweet about it.
You want me to leave right now or what? So you two can have your little hangout again?
I can't stay long anyway. My daughter's in the bath right now, and then she's gonna need some stories, which normally is what dictates when I record with Kane. But But yeah, Justin, Camille, and I, we had our Rockies with our friend Eric Name. And I was asking Justin, I was like, what have the crowds been like this year? And, it was interesting. I mean, there was a lot of frustration, especially in the first half of that game on Friday. But, third quarter, when they go on their run, start of the fourth quarter, Joe Ingles hits a couple of those threes. It was like just this pressure release valve because whatever, they started 2 for 20 and then they finished 12 and 19. So it was fun though. The crowd was really good. And I was kind of surprised. I had no idea. My daughter's never watched a full game with me on TV, right? She doesn't have the attention span for that. I was kind of curious what it'd be like going to a game, but no, she was into it. We never had to, I never had to give her like my phone to watch, Disney or something. Like she was pretty engaged throughout. And, the crowd was a little loud for her, but it was a lot of fun. And my only notes from the fan experience side was I was used to the whole no straws thing. People with little kids will appreciate like not having straws for little kids is kind of problematic. I had a soda. The like tops they have now are actually like kind of little sippy top things are not bad. But then like I got a water for my daughter and they like don't let you keep the tops of the waters either. And it's just like, and I was really like, I was carrying my daughter. And I was like, okay, how am I going to carry this? And then the lady was nice enough. She gave me like a little thing to carry the drinks in. But yeah, like, just can we get some like paper straws just in emergencies, like for kids or something like that? Maybe like if you can, hold a small child up like Simba style, like can you be given a straw if you have a small child that you can offer? That would be my only note. I'll have to tell our, friend of the pod, Dustin Godsey, to maybe get some emergency straws for little kids available. But other than that, it was a ton of fun, and it wasn't, minus 20-degree wind chill that night. So it ended up being a pretty good game. And it was good because the Bucks were 0 for 4 since I got to Wisconsin, and they were looking at the 0 for 5. But the good news was I was leaving on Saturday regardless. So anyway, so that was my Bucks fan experience on Saturday night. And then I'm glad that things got right back to, pain and suffering last night, which I was assuming Giannis would play. And then when I got to my hotel, I watched the Packer game on DVR on my phone, and then I flip over and I'm like, and I forgot to do the hide scores thing, and it gave me like 43-21. I'm like, ooh, like, or 53-31 or something, and I was like, what? And I was just counted myself thankful that Giannis decided to play on Friday and not New Year's Day. But anyway, so yeah, that's my tale.
I assumed Giannis would play yesterday and not play on Tuesday just because of a back-to-back. So it was kind of surprising that he was out. And so, Kane, you asked about the atmosphere. I had said before you came on, Frank, I was frankly stunned that most fans waited until minutes to leave that game. And even when you knew it was pretty much over going into the fourth, it was still full and nobody was leaving. The atmosphere overall wasn't bad, I think, because the Giannis news, if you don't follow the injury report, you have no idea. And even then, it didn't appear until early afternoon. So I think a lot of people were just blindsided when they hear the starting lineups rolled out and they see, wait a minute, he's not playing tonight. So I think everybody was kind of caught off guard by it.
I generally see it when I wake up in the morning and might see a tweet from Eric or something. So it's the first thing I see in the morning. So I'm like, oh, you beauty. How am I going to burn these next 2-3 hours before I get to watch the Bucks without Giannis, Khris, and Jrue? So I sort of slide into a little bit of depression there. But Camille, Khris Middleton, the update today from Eric Name. This is a quote from Mike Budenholzer. He says, I think there's been a few good days here, just continuing to work to prepare him to return to play. So there isn't a significant update. This is me now, big surprise, back to Bud. But a couple of good days, and you want to stack those on top of each other. So we'll see how the next few go. I'm going to be honest. I said on yesterday's podcast that I'm giving it till the end of January before I really go into full-blown panic mode. But let's be honest, it doesn't seem like he's close.
Yeah, well, one thing with the Bucks medical team and Bud that we've learned
he could
over
play
the
tomorrow.
last few years. Yeah, you really don't know. They're going to keep everything really close to the vest when it comes to the health of the players.
He's been ruled out the next 2 days, Kane. So let's not build any false hope around that. Bud already officially said he's out the next 2 days, but perhaps end of the week. Anyway, sorry.
We've also seen him upgraded or downgraded from questionable to out. So
you never really know. You just kind of have to take the day as it comes. And apparently, like your quote was saying, you got to just kind of try to stack good days each other. You gave the Bucks to the end of this month, which is like commendable, logical, respectful. For me, I just mentioned it, I think last week, where it's like, I'm just, there's some red flags that's starting to pop up a little bit where it's like, I don't think Khris Middleton reinserting himself back into the lineup fixes everything that we're starting to see with this team. Just a lot of effort things, turnovers, general sloppiness, and them not being able to make a three-pointer is just giving really bad playoff flashbacks right now in the middle of the regular season, which is not always the coolest thing to have going on. But I would hope that Khris is, as Bud said, stacking those good days, that he's close to a return, that it's a situation where they're just trying to think of his long-term health and make sure that he's, running at peak form come May, June, so on and so forth. And that they're like, January, we can afford to, slow roll this return back a little bit more, give him some time to get himself back right so that we don't force anything. Because when you think about the layoff he had with the knee initially and then the wrist, like, he hadn't played basketball in a very, very long time. So to see him come back in here, he had some, minor bumps and bruises, made sense. I did not expect him to still be out this long, but whatever he has going on, I just hope that it's something that doesn't linger once he returns back.
Camille, they're saving all the threes for the playoffs. See,
it's the
don't
opposite.
waste all those threes on the regular season like they have normally. They're gonna bank some. No, I share some of that concern. And I was kind of curious. I assume, again, because literally I'm just getting in from a trail. I assume you guys have not talked about the Bill Simmons comment about the Bucks and some drama or whatever. I mean, I tweeted like my general take on this. Like, look, if ever there was a time for the random noise that happens around any team to start to bubble up a little bit more, it's going to be at a time when you're losing a bunch of games. Giannis is carrying this crazy workload. Khris is like mysteriously, may not be the right word. I said curiously absent earlier, right? Was Khris in the best shape he could have been coming back? Let's just say his history suggests Khris has a history of not coming into regular camps in the best shape. I think when he's played with the national team, that's probably been a good thing, actually, because it kind of forces that a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, like at this point, I think Khris Middleton's, seemed like he had work to do regardless. And then whatever these injuries have been, on the one hand, they don't seem serious from the sense I get, but the flip side is, okay, dude, like, are you gonna come back and play basketball? Like, we're all just sort of, in the dark. And as Camille was saying, like, not exactly brand new for the Bucks to be just in some ways like, yeah, Bud will give us updates, but we don't really know the extent of things. And again, it seems close. So I'm not going to panic about the injury really, but it's just, I think, do we have the license to be annoyed? Yeah, I think I think we're within our rights, as fans, to be annoyed at just sort of the way this has all trended, right? Going to be back at the start of the regular season. All right, it's January 2023, and we've barely seen, much of Khris Middleton, and certainly not much of his best. So that's annoying. And Giannis, I mean, I was thinking about, like, this is the first time Giannis has ever had a negative differential in a month under the Bud era, and I think it was like -7 or -8 net. I mean, it was a weird month. He puts up these monster scoring numbers, and the Bucks could not shoot with him on the floor. The defense was bad with him on the floor, and obviously, even though they were weirdly like positive with him on the bench, just a weird month. And then Jrue getting sick and all that stuff. Like it's just a weird, it's a couple months into the season as well. It's cold, Kane. You can't relate to that, but I have just been in Milwaukee. It was really cold. Yeah, I mean, when things are good, especially a team like the Bucks, you don't really hear about people, what they're annoyed with, or that there's kind of like maybe some stuff that people want to play more, things like that. But yeah, at times like these, that's when, someone may randomly start to talk a little bit. And again, I mean, compared to Brooklyn or where Philly was at the start of the year and all that, I mean, I think the Bucks are not in that kind of, they're obviously not at that stage of anything, but they just need to get healthy and get these dudes playing together again, because again, just this whole chain reaction of frustration, Giannis having to do too much, the role players being exposed for what they can't do, which is a lot that they can't do. It's just, just not a great vibes part of the calendar right now. And again, you just hope that starting tomorrow, Jrue's probable as of this podcast. Hopefully he comes back, even though he wasn't in practice today. Giannis practiced today. So hopefully you get Giannis, Jrue back tomorrow. We'll see what that means for Toronto. And you start to not just stack up a couple practice days for Khris Middleton, but you start to actually stack up some wins for a change, which obviously they haven't been doing. So I don't know. Like I'm struggling to like go panic mode, but like annoyance mode, like yeah, as fans, of course, like they got their doors blown off multiple times by good teams. Like they haven't looked good, right? And Giannis has had some monster games, but for the most part, there's been a lot of reason to be annoyed. And I think also just, I mean, you can't help but wonder with some of the role players. Like, yeah, I mean, we were talking about it, Camille, Justin, and I, and Kane. We've talked about like what do they really need with the trade deadline now? Like a little more than a month away. I think we'll have some good conversations about that. But it's also kind of stinks because like until you get all those guys back, it's kind of hard to really like figure out how this team fits together because, Joe Ingles having, like on Friday, like they had Grayson Allen, Joe Ingles, and AJ Green seemed to play the majority of the minutes defending Anthony Edwards. It's like, first off, I don't know how Anthony Edwards didn't like just destroy those matchups more. Like those guys held up actually not horribly, but it's a funhouse mirror right now. Like we need to see like a closer version of what this team's going to be like in the regular season or in the postseason, which again, hopefully these guys also get healthy. But again, like it's hard for me to be like more than just annoyed until we start to see that, I think.
Two things before we continue.
And I'm in my daughter's
You look
room
like
now.
you're...
I'm in my daughter's pink room now. So
okay.
I'm about to
It looked like you were sitting on Blue's Clues chair or something.
Yeah. The first off, if any parent, the best chair you have in your house is always the chair in your first kid's room that you like bought that does the sliding thing for like babies. They're the best chairs ever. Like almost worth having a child just to have one of these chairs. But yeah, so I'll do like working here during the day when my daughter's at school. But anyway, I got bedtime to deal with, you guys. So I'm gonna let it go back to what did you call it? The 3-man weave here. And I'll 3-person weave, and I'll get back out of your hair. But I just figured I'd drop in and offer my random parting shots from my trip to Wisconsin. By the way, 3 trips to Rockies, 6 slices and 1 order of breadsticks over the course of about 10 days, which I think last year I went 4 times, so I'm slipping a little bit. But I don't know. I haven't stepped on a scale here. We'll see where I'm at post holidays.
Let's be honest, we've all had a rough week or so when it comes to eating and whatever else, Frank, so I wouldn't worry about that. Are we podcasting tomorrow post-game? What do you think?
Screw it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's take our medicine. Let's plan on it.
I'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully
all right.
The players show up.
All right.
Frank Madden, everybody. All right, speaking of stacking up things, guys, as we're back to the triple threat with Camille and Justin, we hope that our listeners are stacking up wins on Prize Picks, which is our sponsor of the podcast today. You might ask how it works, I should say. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport you watch. Packers, perhaps, yesterday might have intrigued our listeners or viewers, but there's NFL stuff. Hockey, mentioned every time. Justin's our resident hockey expert on this podcast, but you can find any sport you want. College stuff as well. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. So don't forget to enter that promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Frank kind of just teased the Bill Simmons stuff, Justin, as we continue rolling here. And by the way, everyone should listen to the Locked On Sports Today podcast after they're done with this one. Peter Bukowski, who I think was pretty fired up yesterday, he'll have you covered with all the sports news from around the world with the help of the local experts. But the Bill Simmons stuff. So look, he mentioned whatever. It was literally a 5-second grab on his podcast that said there's weird chemistry stuff going on. And I've said before, I enjoy listening to that stuff. I find it very humorous, very entertaining. I just personally like it. I know a lot of people don't. That's fine. Clearly, he's done pretty well for himself. But when I was even thinking about that, I was thinking to myself, well, who's even got the right to be pissed off right now? Because most of the guys have got more minutes than they would have got in a perfect world because of all the injuries that have been there. Maybe Serge Ibaka hasn't played a lot. but everyone else has probably been getting expanded minutes. And the guys, if they were playing limited minutes and weren't happy about it, if everyone gets back healthy, you don't think they're going to play anyway. So I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. It was only a 5-second grab, Justin. But I want to throw these numbers at you. So I looked it up today. So this is, in my estimation, the 3 best players on the contending teams in the Eastern Conference. So Tatum, Brown, and Smart from Boston, they've played 708 minutes together. Mitchell, Garland, and Mobley have played 581 minutes together in Cleveland. Durant, Irving, Simmons have played 371 minutes together in Brooklyn. So that's a little bit on the lower scale, 371. But still, they've obviously started to find some rhythm. For Holiday, Giannis, and Middleton, they've played 67 minutes together this season. So the concern continues to be if he's going to come back. But the reality is we just haven't seen anywhere near close to the best version of this team. But do you make anything of potential chemistry stuff? You're in there certainly closer than what I am at the moment, obviously.
I mean, I guess first and foremost, I'm sure there's some chemistry concerns when you have 67 minutes together with your 3 best players. And when you just look at, we joked about it, but look at some of the groupings we've seen on the floor where the beginning of the season, I remember thinking like, man, this is a lot better than last year. There's no Khris and there's no Pat yet, but still, I remember some of those games early last year where it was Mamu having a career performance every other game because he had to. And all of a sudden we're back to that place. So I'm sure there's chemistry there. The rest of the guys that you kind of hinted at of like who's not playing a lot that could maybe have some gripes behind the scenes. I mean, if you just look at it, George Hill and Wesley Matthews have been kind of on and off with their playing time, but I'm sure that was the discussion with both of them coming into the season of this is how we plan on using you to kind of preserve you for the postseason. Serge Ibaka, it kind of seems like the same thing of like, hey, you're our emergency guy for bigs in case we have more foul troubles in a game or injuries pop up. So it's your second year with us. You can learn a little bit more, but you're not going to be getting heavy playing time. Jordan Ward is really the only guy that I think you would look at and say, well, kind of interesting how his numbers just really fell off a cliff. And a lot of that has to do with this team reintroducing some wing players. But the last few games, I mean, he's the noticeable name that hasn't been able to play despite all the injuries that they've had, and especially with the outcome of some of those games and the lack of offense. So I think I'm kind of with what you guys have all said so far, and you and Frank, that I don't make a ton of it. I'm sure there is a little bit of frustration just because of what they've been going through for the last month of the season. And I'm sure the guy that's maybe the most frustrated is Bud when he looks at who he has available on a nightly basis, that's kind of wearing on him. But I'm with you I'm not reading anything into it or even hovering over the panic button until we get to February and it's more of the same where guys continue to be in and out of the lineup and maybe you still haven't seen Khris yet. And then it's time to kind of raise an eyebrow and say, okay, what's really going on here? Because as bad as it's been and as ugly as it's been and frustrating as it's been, the good news for the Bucks is the Brooklyn Nets are really the only team that's been on fire since December 1st. And they just won again tonight against that team, but still it's Brooklyn. Philadelphia has been playing better. Cleveland's been playing better, but the Celtics are, I think, 7-7 or 8-7 since December 1st. The Bucks are 8-8 now. So those two teams have kind of been doing the same thing. And I think it's easy for us because we're so close to it and trapped in what the Bucks are doing to look at this and say, well, what's going on here? When in reality, a lot of teams have just been playing okay since December 1st.
Yeah, the Bucks 9-0 start gets brought up a lot, I see from fans, and I think it's a fair point. We probably didn't expect that at the time. We originally looked at December and said this is going to be really tough because you have that heavy start at home. Look, in the end, fortunately, they cashed in on that. I'll get some more questions to you with the chemistry stuff, Camille, after we talk about our friends at betonline.net, which is the number one source for sports betting info and stats. You can find everything you need across multiple sports, but you can also get the latest on the NBA awards. Now, Giannis has dropped over December, actually, we should say. Now, this won't be a surprise to many people. We've just discussed the record for the team. He's now the fourth favorite for MVP. Maybe you see some value there. Luka Doncic is the favorite. He won the player of the week for the West this week, averaging about 40 billion points per game. Then you got Nikola Jokic coming in second, then Jason Tatum third, and Giannis is fourth. If you want to get involved in the NBA Coach of the Year award, Mike Budenholzer, I don't know. Look, I'm just saying from what I read in the YouTube comments, but he's there. He's currently let me count here. He is the 10th favorite for NBA Coach of the Year. So if you're feeling enticed by that one, you can go and jump on at betonline.net. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Camille. So just as Justin was going through that and talking about, okay, who would even have a reason to be aggrieved? The other guy that probably has reason to be aggrieved is probably Giannis because he's been asked to do too much. But I don't know who he can be annoyed. Is he annoyed at Khris for being injured? Anyway, that's all speculation. But I'm just saying he is the one guy in the team that I could sit back and say, why isn't these guys making threes? Why am I needing to do absolutely everything for this team and score 40 and 20? But we know he's the ultimate teammate at this point in time. But if you look at the minutes, Jordan Wall has played 437 to Margin Beauchamp's 375. So you can't say that he didn't have his opportunities and he just didn't cash in on them. And then you look at the Javon Carter, George Hill stuff. George Hill still played over 600 minutes this year in only 30 games. So he's probably played more than you probably really want him to. And then Javon Carter obviously has been the big beneficiary with 919. But do you read anything into it at all?
Well, at least one thing Giannis can draw on is experience. It's not the first time he's been here where he's had to, put so much on his shoulders. But no, seriously though, one thing I always think of when I hear comments like this or reports like this is one, who is the source? And it being Bill Simmons is kind of like, okay, well, kind of have to understand what that means. Like you mentioned, some people detest him, some people love his content, but overall, he's going to be entertaining. And he is a Boston homer. So it's interesting that he did want to throw out that line about the Bucks struggling and whatnot, even though the Bucks have, as we've mentioned, had all of these different roster constructions trying to plug guys in, and someone's sick, someone's hurt. Let's get this guy some minutes. It hasn't been any continuity with the Bucks. Meanwhile, over the last 10 games, the Celtics are 500 and they've been pretty healthy. So it's interesting, just to hear those types of comments come through. But overall, even if it is true, like you mentioned, I'm not exactly sure who will really have the biggest beef, probably Jordan Wall. And as for Giannis, I would think it's one of those things where it's like you're more irritated, but not at anyone in particular, but rather the situation itself. You don't expect that when the new year strikes that you haven't really been able to play solid minutes with the guys who you plan to go to battle with in the playoffs. That's kind of that's unexpected. The fact that Joe Ingles is back before we get a lot of Khris Middleton, it's not how we expected things to go. So I could see some frustration coming out of that. But overall, I feel like the guys that we have in that locker room, they play for each other. They understand the end goal here. A lot of vets in there. They know what they're trying to get to, and that's that championship. So just a rocky season right now. As I always say, you hope that things like this happens earlier on in the year rather than later on in the year. Speaking of Boston, as we saw with Boston last year, this time last year, there were conversations about should Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum be traded? Should they be broken up? They can't work together. It's not going to work. And then they go on this crazy, win streak, make a run to the finals. And now everybody's just like, oh my gosh, what a great duo this is. Like, oh, they're fantastic together. Things can change really quickly in the NBA. But one thing you got to do is remember it's a long season and try to keep it together as much as you can while working on that end goal of trying to win a championship.
Yeah, I think that was probably when I said that Giannis has reason to be frustrated. I think that's more the point. Everyone should be frustrated because the Bucks started 9-0 and they're 14-13 since that stretch of time. And this is a team that, Justin, as you know, over the course of the last few regular seasons, they've been able to figure it out. So you had me when you mentioned the Boston Celtics, and that's right. So they were 25-25 on January 28 last year.
Well, they were 19-21, and they went like 32-10 to close the year, something like that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's a 500 team at the end of Jan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a long season. I guess the frustration from probably Giannis, if he has because we know he's the ultimate competitor, he wants to play. He's just like, I want to win. I want my guys back, and everyone's just in a holding pattern. So I'd be very surprised personally if there was any chemistry stuff. But once these things start to get out there, then you just sit back and wait and see if there's any further info along the way there. But they do play the Wizards. Let's be honest, if they have Giannis and they have Jrue, you just want them to get a win. We want to have a post-game pod where we're feeling, happy about this team again. And it's not going to change anything if they win tomorrow, but you need to start ticking over these wins when the schedule gets a little bit easier.
I would assume Bradley Beal's coming back tomorrow. I was under the strong, or today, whenever you listen to this, I was under the strong impression he was going to play on New Year's Day, and he was warming up for quite a bit, that it seemed like we were told he was going to be a game time decision and had to go through some stuff. It looked like he passed. But I think once the Wizards saw what the score was, it just became we probably don't need to rush him back today. And also, if it seems like I was distracted the last few minutes, Donovan Mitchell just pulled a Luka Doncic and tied the game off his own missed free throw to send it into overtime against the Bulls.
Well, should the Bucks want the Cavs to win, or should they want the Bulls to lose and stay away from them as they keep tumbling down the standings, Camille? Is that a little too negative?
Hey, listen, I won't tell anyone how they should be cheering. If that's someone's logic, God bless.
All right. Well, hopefully the Bucks can get a win. Camille, you going to any games soon? What the heck's going on? I know it's cold outside. What's going on? You got any plans?
I know. I haven't been to a game yet, but I will be going to a game on my husband's birthday. They play the Hornets on his birthday at the end of this month. So I'll be in the building for that game.
Is that the actual day of his birthday?
Yep, the 31st.
That is the day after mine. Wow.
Okay, Aquarius energy. All right.
Do you know what's crazy about that? It's a little bit under 8 months before mine.
And about 5 months before mine. So, we're all in there.
All right. I need to make sure everyone understands that they need to listen to game once they're done listening to Locked On Bucks, as we try and get this a little bit back on track. We know Locked On Bucks is your first listen, but make your second listen game to game. NBA, every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Justin, what do you think about the whole fatal four-way situation here?
It was interesting. I mean, we've all done shows with Frank in the past. You just clear out and you let him ISO ball. So that's, I think, what we all did.
Well, to be fair, he was hanging around for a short time, not a long time, and it had been about 3 or 4 days since we spoke. So I think he had some stuff to get off his chest. So have to, sometimes you just got to let Frank cook, Camille.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, you understand? Shooters are going to shoot, and Frank is going to Frank. So you gotta clear out and be ready to catch that ball when the pass comes.
All right, let us know what you all thought about it, though. It's fun when we got 3. It's better when we got 4. I don't know how many people you can get on this StreamYard account, but I think you can do way more. So we might be able to have some real carnage as the season continues. But Frank already confirmed that he'll be back for post-game tomorrow. Hopefully the Bucks win. Hopefully there's just sensational vibes all around with this Milwaukee team that overall, let's be honest, they're 23-13. We're all just a little bit impatient. We want to see all the best players on the floor so we can enjoy watching this team play. So we'll be back tomorrow for the post-game show, and we'll speak to you guys then.